The more we keep on having these conversations about being the face of the NBA and who should it be and things like that, the more validated I feel after making that face of the NBA video. And if you haven't seen that video, I would suggest you watch that one, obviously after watching this one, but I would suggest you watch that video because a lot of the points that I made in that video apply in this video. If you're out of the loop, recently Anthony Edwards during like the All-Star weekend basically said that he doesn't want to be the face of the NBA, and LeBron James corroborated those talking points by essentially saying, how can you be the face of the NBA when the NBA culture is so negative and they're always just shitting on other players and things like that, which I do agree with wholeheartedly. And there's been so much conversation around how bad the NBA is and how viewership is down and all this, right? And a lot of people have brought up a lot of good points, right, when talking about how to fix the NBA, like for example making the games easier to watch. But a large part of why the NBA is in this position that it is right now is because of the media and the narratives that they push. But specifically harping on this face of the league conversation, it's so funny how the media responded to what LeBron James said, right? Because they're not even talking about Anthony Edwards, and they had so many opportunities to finally understand his point, but they just kept missing the point over and over and over again, and unironically proving what LeBron said to be right with the actions that they did, right? So LeBron makes his comments, he stirs up a lot of conversation, and he reiterates what he's saying on Twitter as well. And Stephen A goes on First Take the next morning, and first of all, he makes it all about LeBron, which is even more egregious, right? He makes the entire thing about him, barely mentions Anthony Edwards at all, and then just completely lies about the reasons why the NBA isn't doing as well in their eyes, right? First of all, I just want to address this point. The NBA in the last 2-3 weeks has been awesome, right? Ever since the All-Star break, the NBA has been some of the most entertaining hoops all season long, right? I think it's part of the reason is because of the Luka Doncic trade. A lot has happened with the trade deadline overall, but there's just been a lot more to talk about ever since that trade happened, right? That's number one. But number two, the NBA has actually been putting effort into presenting their product in an entertaining way. They brought back Saturday primetime. They're actually putting games on TV that matter. There's actual intrigue between what's going to happen like in the playoffs, because the playoffs are right around the corner. People are excited. People want to see these matchups. There's conversations around the MVP right now, defensive player of the year, sixth man of the year, most improved. Like there's so many conversations happening right now, and there are so many conversations about who the face of the NBA is, right? And like I said in that face of the league video, I don't think that these conversations are necessary. I don't think that having these face of the league conversations are really beneficial for the NBA, because being the face of the league is just something that just happens, right? It's not like, oh, LeBron is passing the torch to this guy, and it's not something that's set in stone. It just happens, right? Like in 2009 or 2010, whenever you believe that LeBron really became the best player in the league and took over the league, it wasn't well established that, you know, LeBron is the face of the league until he reached the mountaintop, right? Until he won a championship or he won his first MVP. It was just a large contingency of people that just thought, okay, LeBron is the best player in the league now. And there are certain players that just never reached that mountaintop. Like, for example, I don't think that Kevin Durant was ever the face in the league or ever even in consideration for being the face of the league. And the same thing you could argue applies to somebody like Kawhi Leonard or Giannis Antetokounmpo. You can argue that LeBron James is still the face of the league. And, you know, it's like, when we're having these conversations, it's not like being the best player in the league. You know, the most recognizable faces in the league right now are LeBron James, Kevin Durant, and Stephen Curry. Those three guys have been the marquee guys still, even well into their 30s, right? And then the three guys that could have taken their spots, Jokic, Embiid, and Giannis, have not been marketed by the NBA well, and honestly have been disrespected to hell by the media, right? Because of their foreigner status and, you know, how the media can be extremely xenophobic without even realizing it, mind you. And then this incessant need to have an American face of the league. Like, I never understood that shit, bro. Why does the NBA have to have a American face? It doesn't make any sense to me. I thought talent was supposed to be talent. You know, you can still market foreign players to the American markets. It's not like Giannis, given his narrative, is not marketable to the average person, right? Like, I don't understand this incessant need to have an American face of the league. It's so dumb, right? And then the other problem that we're running into is that these people at ESPN, at First Take, right, or even just people in the media in general, they don't actually want Anthony Edwards to be the face of the league just because he's that good, right? Or they think he has the talent. They want him to be the face of the league because he reminds them of somebody in the past. And that's another problem with the media, right? Nostalgia is ruining the way that we perceive current players, because we have a 7'5" demigod in the NBA right now that can shoot, that can attack the rim, that can dribble the ball, that can pass the ball really good. One of the most generational defensive players I've ever seen in my life, and was on pace to be Defensive Player of the Year in his second season, which is unheard of in this current NBA. You know, that's completely unheard of. Generational talent. And his name is Victor Wembanyama, and for some reason people are talking about his GOAT trajectory. It's his second season in the NBA. Why are we talking about his GOAT trajectory and in his second year? He's not even able to legally drink yet in America, and we're over here talking about him in the same vein as Michael Jordan. Why are we talking about Anthony Edwards, a guy who just broke out like 2 years ago, in the same breath as Michael Jordan? And I'm not saying this to disrespect those guys, right? I'm saying this because I care about those guys' legacies. I care about the way that they're perceived. It really pissed me off last year when people were talking about Anthony Edwards this way. It really pissed me off because you know that once you get compared to guys like Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, even LeBron James, the expectations are going to start coming in. Look at a guy like Ben Simmons, right? Even with the litany of issues that this guy had, whether it would be injuries, his mental struggles, or just his inability to score the ball on a consistent basis, you have to admit those LeBron James comparisons that he got when he was out of high school or when he was at LSU, those affected his perception really, really bad, because people all of a sudden had these expectations that he was supposed to be this phenomenal generational talent, and he didn't end up being that. You know, you can blame it on things outside of his control, but also we have to temper our expectations. And the same thing applies to the face of the league conversation. Like LeBron James said, why am I gonna care about being the face of the NBA when all y'all are gonna do is just expect me to fill shoes that I never will? This weird obsession with the past and Michael Jordan and the 90s is getting out of hand. And I'm so glad that my generation is pushing back on these narratives, right? First of all, I'm really sick and tired of people acting as if the 90s was perfect era of basketball and that nothing went wrong in the 90s. First of all, when people of the older eras want to talk about today's game, they always want to talk about load management and players missing games, right? And the two guys that they always bring up is Kawhi Leonard and Joel Embiid. Kawhi Leonard has a degenerative knee, meaning that his knee, there's always going to be something wrong with it, no matter what he does. He cannot avoid getting injured, bro. This guy has chronic knee problems, and there's a chance that he'll never have, like, for the rest of his career, he's never going to have a healthy knee ever again, and he's probably going to end up retiring prematurely. Joel Embiid, same thing. Joel Embiid, this guy has literally been injured every single year of his career. It's not like a one-off thing. So for people to act as if these guys are missing games just because they're not dedicated enough is ridiculous. If you want to talk about Zion Williamson, go for it, because he consistently shows up in season out of shape. If you want to talk about somebody like, I don't know, Kevin Durant missing games from here and there, fair enough, but you can't deny Kevin Durant, first of all, has been pretty healthy given his age. He's played phenomenal basketball for his age. And second of all, can you really blame guys like KD, Steph, and LeBron for missing games when they are literally pushing 40? LeBron James is 40, and he's played a majority of this season. I think he's only missed like a handful of games, and he's putting up 25, 8, and 8 on pretty good splits for his age. Like, y'all gotta give these guys some damn credit, bro. Nikola Jokic, I don't think he's missed a game this year. SGA has not missed a game this year, I believe. But for some reason, there's this narrative that goes around about load management. And the other thing that's so frustrating, right, is that people in the 90s took games off. Scottie Pippen quit on his team. Dennis Rodman literally went on a hiatus for like 3 games in like the 98 season, went to Vegas to just go party it up while his team was in the trenches. Allen Iverson has numerous interview clips where he literally says there was times where he didn't practice and he didn't go hard in practice and that he didn't really show up that much. But for some reason, the 90s gets this weird perception about it that, oh, well, everybody just played hard. And don't even get me started on the defense argument, because there are so many examples of Michael Jordan just torching 90s defenses. But for some reason, and you know, I blame people who idolize the bad boy Pistons for this narrative, but there's this narrative that the 90s defense was like just straight clamps, Hall of Fame defensive badges on everybody. Like, bro, the 90s defense was not that great. in relative to today's defense. Today's defense is way smarter, way more X's and O's, and it's in coinciding with how analytically driven today's offense is, right? So please stop with this 90s glaze. And then the other thing is that when you're comparing a guy like Anthony Edwards to Michael Jordan, right? You're not comparing Anthony Edwards to Michael Jordan straight up. You're comparing the fake narrative-driven version of Michael Jordan that you created to Anthony Edwards, and you're trying to package it as if the 90s was like this ultra superior era. And then Michael Wilbon, he wants to make this whole thing about the LeBron versus Jordan debate, further proving LeBron James's point about the amount of negativity in the NBA media. How many people, whether it be former players, fans, other analysts, have to bring up the amount of straight negativity that these players today get? First of all, players in the 90s were lucky that they didn't have to deal with social media, because the amount of people that I've seen call a guy like Paul George washed, guys like Ben Simmons washed. You know, every time somebody has a bad game, you're gonna get an edit made on you with the washed anthem. But I'm just thinking, like, how many of the players in the 90s could have taken that, you know? Like, if Michael Jordan had his 96 final series today, right? If he would have had played like that today, everyone would call him washed. He would be like ridiculed on social media for that. And I'm not saying that Michael Jordan couldn't handle that, but let's be honest, right? You have LeBron James, who literally has been getting insane expectations since he was 16 years old. Think about how much pressure it takes, right? And, you know, not everybody is LeBron James. That's what people need to understand. LeBron is so great that everybody thinks that players can play as long as he has, right? Like, LeBron's longevity is starting to become the standard at this point, because now we're expecting people like Paul George to still be all-star caliber players or all-NBA caliber players at age 33, 34. We're calling these people washed at 33, 34 years old. And then on top of that, we're expecting them to just be able to handle all the media scrutiny like LeBron has. Like, I think there's only been one time where LeBron James has lashed out at a media member in his entire career, and that was at Charles Barkley that one time where he eviscerated him. He basically said, yeah, you know, Charles Barkley can talk about me in any type of way he wants, but I never spit on nobody, I never threw anybody through a window, just completely exposing Charles Barkley. And it was completely justified. Charles Barkley has been hating on LeBron for years up until that point, and he still hates on him to this day from that specific standpoint. I'm not saying he's a hater or anything, but like, Charles Barkley has this weird, like, old head mentality when it comes to the NBA, and he says some things that I agree with. There's other things that he says that I just think are just boomer coded, but it is what it is, right? Here's my issue. We need to stop comparing young players to players of the past. We need to let the nostalgia of the 80s and 90s go. We need to let go of these narratives that the 80s and 90s were greater than what they were. And we need to stop acting like we can't just go back and watch the games. That's why, you know, for as much as I criticize the We Done With the 90s movement, I appreciate that shit, bro. I appreciate the fact that people went back and watched the games and really figured it out for themselves instead of listening to what these old heads had to say, bro. The old heads, y'all brought that shit upon yourselves with the whole We Done With the 90s shit. Y'all brought that shit upon yourselves because y'all kept on glazing Michael Jordan. Y'all kept glazing the 90s in his era and saying dumb shit like, oh, you know, the 90s defense was so, like, phenomenal, you couldn't get a bucket. Bro, literally Michael Jordan was getting free throws upon free throws. There are so many, like, players that came out that said that Michael Jordan, literally, if you touched him, you would get a foul called on you. But the old heads, they want to say that this era is soft and that they call too many fouls. And even when you want to talk about the All-Star Weekend and how terrible it's been the past few years, people want to act as if this is a new thing, as if the All-Star games in the 90s weren't also really bad, as if people weren't playing defense in the 90s in the All-Star games, as if the dunk contests in the 90s were like so awesome and like they were some of the greatest. The dunk contest, by the time 2000 came around and Vince Carter did his dunk contest, that was a breath of fresh air around that time, because the dunk contest for the past 4 or 5 years up until that point were terrible. But again, it's nostalgia. Nostalgia is like blinding these people. And another point I want to bring up is the lack of marketing that these players get, right? How are we going to market Anthony Edwards when we're constantly comparing him to somebody from 30 years ago? How are we going to market SGA when we're comparing him to people like Kobe Bryant and Tracy McGrady, right? And those are very fair comps, right? Those are like decent comps when you consider their play styles, right? But they don't just do their play styles, right? They compare everything. They're like saying, oh, SGA is the next Kobe, this and that, when in reality, why can't SGA just be SGA? Why do we have to bring Kobe into it, right? And that's the other thing. They're inadvertently ruining these new players' future legacies, and they're tainting the players' legacies of the past, because people are fed up with this shit. People are fed up with this 90s glaze that's been going on for the past few years. And unfortunately, this is what substitutes for good basketball analysis nowadays. Just hypotheticals and legacy talk and all this nonsense, right? And for some reason, Stephen A. Smith is acting as if the media members just can't say anything because the players are too sensitive. When in reality, Stephen A. Smith has been dragging certain people through the mud for years. Like the stuff that he was saying about Kyrie Irving during Kyrie's Brooklyn arc, right? When he was just getting into controversy after controversy, it was bordering on like the hatred that Skip Bayless had for LeBron James. It was bordering on that, because everything that Stephen A. Smith was saying about Kyrie was completely negative. Now I feel like he's eased up on him, but like it gets to a point, bro. Like, and Stephen A. was consistently proving LeBron's point by bringing up how, LeBron ruined the slam dunk contest. And like I mentioned earlier, the dunk contest has been through many droughts in NBA history. So to act as if this is some new thing, that the dunk contest has just been bad, is just false, number one. But number two, to act as if it's LeBron's fault that it's bad is also just stupid, because after LeBron teased that he was going to be in the dunk contest in like 09 or 2010, more stars participated in the dunk contest. More specifically, like I said in my dunk contest video, young up-and-coming rising stars participated in the dunk contest, like John Wall, Paul George, Zach LaVine, Aaron Gordon, Victor Oladipo, Donovan Mitchell, and many more that I can't remember off the top of my head. So this unfair bad rap that LeBron is getting right now is ridiculous, bro. It's actually it's actually pissing me off now. Like, when I'm really thinking about it, it's actually getting my blood boiling, because people are gonna run with this shit. LeBron haters are gonna run with this shit, and they're actually gonna believe it. And I don't know how many more times it needs to be debunked. And I think the most egregious thing that happened in that first take segment was the fact that Stephen Curry the night before dropped 56 points, which was one of his greatest games in a few years. But Steph Curry had one of the best games he's had in a while, and ESPN completely ignored the fact that happened just for Stephen A. to respond to what LeBron James said. He even said it in the segment. He said, I was going to talk about Steph Curry's 50 piece, but LeBron James decided to run his mouth, which is again unironically proving LeBron James's point that negativity runs the NBA, and there's a reason why Anthony Edwards doesn't want to be the face. And I think the worst part about this also is that you have Luka Doncic right there in LA. You have Jason Tatum right there telling you, hey, what about me? I want to be the face of the NBA. I'm currently entering my prime right now. Jason Tatum's like 26, 27. He has a ring under his belt. He's been to multiple Eastern Conference Finals, 2 NBA Finals, multiple time All-Star, I believe like 3 or 4 time All-NBA player, depending on his circumstances, like barring injury and stuff. First ballot Hall of Famer already. I feel like if he retired today, he would be a Hall of Famer. You have that guy in the NBA right now basically saying, I want to be the face of the NBA. I could be the face of the NBA. And Tatum could be the face of the NBA because he's in, honestly, the perfect position right now. Like, he's on a really good team. He's a marketable guy. He's a semi-charismatic guy. The only thing that is stopping Tatum from being the NBA face is that he's corny as hell. That's it. It's literally just his corniness is what's holding him back. And then Luka Doncic, literally, he has the talent. He's semi-charismatic, but really, who really cares about charisma at this point? Because the NBA community will literally make a meme out of anything. You don't have to be like this super charismatic guy like you used to. Really, all you have to do is just let your talent speak for itself. But even then, Luka Doncic is a pretty charismatic guy. He's a marketable guy, and he has an entertaining play style. And he's literally on the most popular team in the NBA. How is it that he's not considered for the face of the NBA? Like, it's actually ridiculous. When he was having his phenomenal season last year, he was putting up phenomenal numbers. He was arguably the MVP last year, as he had a pretty good case to win it, and he led his team to the NBA Finals. But for some reason, people were still looking over him for Anthony Edwards, and they don't even care about Anthony Edwards. That's the worst part. Y'all, like, these ESPN analysts, quote unquote, they don't care about Anthony Edwards' face of the NBA argument. They only want Anthony Edwards to be the face of the NBA because he reminds them of Michael Jordan. That's literally it. As soon as the Timberwolves stop being as good, as soon as Anthony Edwards starts taking way too many threes for their liking, now all of a sudden they've turned on him. And now he's saying he doesn't want to be the face of the NBA. And now all of a sudden everybody just hates Anthony Edwards now, which is ridiculous in my opinion. It proves that they never really liked him in the first place and that they were only using him to further their own agenda. And then, Stephen A has the nerve to still be talking about what is wrong with the NBA, talking about three-pointers and all this other nonsense, bro. I'm so sick and tired of every conversation demonizing three-pointers as if three-pointers were the worst invention in the entirety of basketball. Three-pointers are a non-issue because y'all had no problem watching Steph Curry shoot three after three after three. There wasn't that much complaining going on back then, and the Golden State Warriors were the most popular team of all time, and their offense was largely predicated on them shooting threes. It was largely predicated on them spacing the floor out. Now you have teams like the Celtics and the Thunder and the Cavaliers who are utilizing that strategy and evolutionizing that strategy. I don't even know if that's a word, but we'll go with it. Now all of a sudden we have people saying that everybody in the NBA plays the same just because they shoot threes, and they don't even understand like the way that these teams are getting their threes off. We have the Cleveland Cavaliers, who are the best team in the NBA. They're shooting a pretty good percentage from three, and they've revolutionized the pick and roll. We have a team like OKC, who shoots more mid-ranges than any team in the NBA. A team like Denver, who prioritizes playmaking and passing and moving without the ball. A team like Boston, who has pretty much mastered the drive and kick with the amount of playmakers that they have on this team. A team like New York, who is extremely ISO heavy and whose offense is pretty much just shaped around Brunson and Cat. A team like Milwaukee, who consistently attacks the rim. Like within like a minute or two, I just debunked that stupid ass narrative that everybody plays the same. It's just because they shoot threes now. And here's another one for the old heads. In the 90s, everybody was playing the exact same way. They literally had to change the rules in the 90s because every team just posted up every single possession. Every possession, post up, post up, post up. There wasn't that much guard action. It was a big man dominated league, except for Michael Jordan, obviously. And then going into the 2000s, that's when shooting guards became the more overpowered position, right? Like the 2000s was the golden era of shooting guards. And that's when you saw the NBA implement the 5-second back to basket rule, because people like Charles Barkley would just back down for like half the shot clock and then go shoot a contested mid-range fadeaway. And who knows what the fix for this problem is going to be. I don't know how we're going to end up phasing out all this old media and these just hot take merchants that we have at First Take, because we've gotten to the point now where a lot of people don't really take them seriously anymore. Like the people who are semi-casuals at this point, they realize that a lot of the shit that they say is just stupid, right? But there's still a lot of influence there, right? And I respect Stephen A. Smith as a journalist, right? I don't think that Stephen A. Smith is like the worst analyst of all time, right? But because of how the format of ESPN has changed in the past 10 years, right? Where we're going from actual semi-analysis, right? I remember watching Stephen A. Smith clips from back in the day, like 2013, 14. Dude was actually pulling out numbers. He was pulling out stats. He was reading the stat sheet. And even though it wasn't like straight up X's and O's like something that JJ Redick would do on his podcast, it would be and still analysis, right? It would be him reading off the box score from the night before. Now Stephen A. Smith doesn't even do that anymore. All he does is just come up with hot takes, just throw as many hot takes at the wall and see what sticks, and then that's what it is for the night, right? Like Stephen A. Smith has really lost his touch as a sports quote-unquote analyst at this point, and he's just said so much idiotic things that it's hard to take him seriously at this point. And the stuff that he was saying about LeBron James and Anthony Edwards just proves that. And hopefully the NBA can actually improve the coverage around the sport itself, because that's how the sport is eventually going to grow, right? Part of the reason why LeBron is as big as he is because people talk about him consistently. It's because people talk about if he's the GOAT or not consistently. That helped raise LeBron's stock in in terms of just popularity in general, right? But that's all I had to say for this video. If you enjoyed, make sure to hit that like button down below. Check out my most recent videos. There should be a playlist of all the full-length videos that I posted on this channel so far. Subscribe if you're new. I am on the journey to 1,000 subscribers, and a subscription would be appreciated. And also make sure to like this video so that it's get pushed in the algorithm, because I really need some views right now. No, I'm just playing. But that is it for this video. If you enjoyed, like, comment, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Comment your thoughts down below. I will be reading the comments. I am excited to read the comments on this video because it's a topic that I'm semi-passionate about, and it also pertains to one of my previous videos. But that's it for me, and I'm out. Peace.